In this video, we're going to be looking at how to make ProfileView run faster with higher performance and a lower impact on the Pi server. So we'll be doing this through two things. One, there's a thing called the profile cache, which will store data locally on your computer so that you can access it quickly without having to go to the Pi server every time, and also reasons why proper exception and compression settings can really speed up your profiles. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the speed it takes to pan around. So when I use these buttons up here, pan forward and pan back in time, I move up and down in time. And you'll notice down here in the bottom right, just watch that as I pan. It says getting data. Getting data. Every time I pan, it needs to go to the server and get the data. And that takes a little time because it has to go to the server and ask for a large array of data. In this case, 600 tags by maybe 250 tags. How many am I using? 150. So that can be a lot of tags. And how can we speed that up? We're going to do that with a thing called the cache. So sometimes when you start up ProfileView, you'll get a warning that the profile cache is not running, and it's a good thing for performance. And that's what we're talking about right here. So you'll find this, if you're not running it already, under Pi System, Pi Cache Server Dialog. Alright, now when you start up this dialog, the cache automatically starts. If you press refresh, you'll see the recent messages. So in my message, I can say, okay, it looks like it's finished the initialization of the cache. I can see here it actually connected to my server, and I can see how many tags it added. So it automatically starts adding the tags that you're showing in your profiles and what data you're showing. Now, just running this isn't quite enough yet. I actually need to restart ProfileView in order to see the benefits. So I'll do that right now. All right, now here's back in that profile. Now you'll see with the cache, as I scan through, it's much faster. Just like that. Wow. Okay. If I were to turn off the cache, I'd lose those benefits. We'll see that in just a little while. Now there's just a few things you can look at in the cache here. If you want to see some basic configuration options, you can click on Configure. The time period. Now what this does, this sets the amount of time that the cache will store. So by default it's 8 hours because just you're storing all this on your local computer and you don't want it to take up a lot of memory. But if you're regularly looking at profiles that are a day old or 2 days old, you might want to increase this. The wait time. The wait time refers to how long after starting up should the cache wait before it connects to the Pi server. If this ProfileView is installed on the Pi server, when you restart that whole machine, the Pi server has to start. So it's not going to be available for a little while. So you might want to put in a wait time of a minute in that case. There's other options here if you need to get into the other performance options of it. I find that just starting the cache does a great job. This last piece down here, dialog open on startup. So this means that when you start your computer, the cache will be started in the system tray down here. Now, if you use ProfileView a lot, this is a really great option because when your computer starts, it'll automatically go get the data, and when you start up ProfileView, you'll be able to snap right through it. However, if you rarely use ProfileView, then maybe you don't want a startup program going, so you can check that if that's the case. Okay, if you want to see more other messages, you'll click refresh and you'll get new messages. You'll also notice that it shows how much memory approximately that it's taking up at any one time. So again, I can speedily go through, and if I were to turn off the cache, I'll lose those benefits. So now I have to wait to get data from the server. The second step in optimizing the performance of ProfileView is in proper exception and compression settings. Now to show you this, I'm going to show you two profiles of the same data. Now, exception and compression, that's a fundamental of the whole Pi system, and it applies here too. Sometimes it's fully appropriate to store every single piece of data that you record, but for the purposes of displaying it again in this profile, you don't need to do that. So if you have a piece of paper or any sheet or anything really that's scanning across, if one single tag, one column here is redundant time and time again, we don't need to store every piece of that data. So by doing that, by filtering out some of the points, we get better performance on our PI system because we don't have to store as much, and we get better performance in ProfileView because we have less data we need to move across our whole network. So the difference between these two displays here is that on the right hand side I have 60 rows displayed, and on the left hand side I have only 10 rows displayed. You can see that in this histogram here and here. The one on the right is a bit finer. However, both of these are based on the same data. In fact, there's only 10 rows of actual data. So this one on the left-hand side is the raw data and just the raw data. And the one on the right-hand side is interpolating between those values, which is somewhat like what would be happening if you were interpolating between values that had been compressed or accepted out. So you'll see, when I have exception and compression settings turned on, ProfileView will have the ability to interpolate between points. It'll just interpolate linearly, which is why they were filtered out in the first place. Because of this, you can have exception and compression settings set for these scans, and ProfileView will do a fine job reproducing it. The difference between the configuration between these two, I'll just show you, is that on this side, I have 60 scans every 5 seconds. So each row is 5 seconds, and there's 60 rows. On this side, I have 10 rows. Each row is 30 seconds. So it's the same data, but on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side here, we'll be interpolating between all of these points every 5 seconds. All right. So in this video, we went over why proper exception and compression settings are okay and improve the performance of ProfileView, and also turning on that cache server, which will allow you to scroll through profiles lickety-split. Okay, good luck speeding up your ProfileView.